The
In a
room was
dream,
silent
Solomon
except
asked
for
for
the sound
wisdom.
of
God was
breathing,
pleased and
heavy,
granted him not only
labored,
wisdom but
final.
riches and honor beyond
King
measure.
David lay on his bed surrounded by advisors, priests, and family. His body, once strong enough to kill giants and lead armies, was failing. Solomon stood in the corner watching. His father, the warrior king, the man after God's own heart, was dying. And Solomon, he was about to inherit a throne he didn't feel ready for. David's eyes found him. Weak but clear. Solomon, the young prince, stepped forward, knelt beside the bed. David's hand reached out, gripped his. Be strong, show yourself a man, keep the commandments of the Lord, walk in his ways, then you will prosper. Solomon nodded, throat tight. Listen carefully, David whispered. There are enemies, inside and outside the kingdom. Some will test you immediately. Be wise, be firm, be faithful. The grip loosened. David's eyes closed. And just like that, he was gone. The greatest king Israel had ever known. Dead. The room erupted in mourning, wailing, chaos. But Solomon just sat there, numb, terrified, because now everything fell on him. The kingdom, the people, the legacy, the weight of a crown he'd never asked for, and he had no idea if he was strong enough to carry it. The coronation happened quickly. Too quickly. Solomon barely had time to process his father's death before he was standing in front of thousands, being anointed king. The priest poured oil over his head. It ran down his face, soaking into his beard, dripping onto his robes. Sacred, irreversible, the crown was lifted, heavy gold, ornate, beautiful, and terrifying. It was placed on Solomon's head. The crowd erupted in celebration. Trumpets blared. People shouted, "Long live King Solomon!" But Solomon felt none of the joy, just weight. The crown pressed down on his skull, not just physically, spiritually. Every decision, every judgment, every policy would rest on him. One mistake could destabilize the kingdom David had spent decades building. One wrong alliance, war. One moment of weakness, rebellion. One poor judgment, chaos. He looked out at the crowd, thousands of faces, all depending on him. Behind him stood advisors, some loyal, some scheming. To his left, foreign dignitaries, watching, assessing, calculating. To his right, priests expecting holiness, righteousness, divine leadership. I'm not my father, Solomon thought. I'm not a warrior. I don't have his courage, his experience, his relationship with God. The celebration continued, but inside Solomon was drowning. The crown didn't feel like honor. It felt like a noose. And he had no idea how to lead a nation when he could barely lead himself. 1 Kings 1:38-40. The neighboring kingdoms watched Israel closely. Egypt to the south, powerful, calculating, always looking for advantage. Philistia to the west, old enemies, bitter, waiting for weakness. Moab and Ammon to the east, resentful of David's conquests, eager to reclaim territory. Syria to the north, ambitious, expanding, opportunistic. They all heard the news. David is dead. A young, inexperienced son now rules. Spies reported back. He's untested, unproven. This could be our moment. In Egypt, Pharaoh's advisors whispered, Israel is vulnerable. We should pressure their borders, test their resolve. In Philistia, military leaders planned. David crushed us, but his son? We'll see if he has his father's strength. Solomon's own
Rise,
advisors
king
knew
of the
this,
realm.
brought reports daily.
I accept this
Egypt is
burden.
mobilizing troops near the border. Philistine raids are increasing. Syria is forming alliances with smaller kingdoms. Each report added pressure. Each threat demanded response. But respond how? With force? Diplomacy? Appeasement? Strength? Solomon had inherited a kingdom at peace. But peace is fragile, especially when predators sense weakness. He sat in council meetings, listening to advisors argue. Some urged immediate military action. Show strength, prove you're David's son. Others counseled caution. We're not ready for war. Negotiate. Buy time. Solomon said little, just listened, trying to discern wisdom he didn't yet possess. And every night he'd return to his chambers, lie awake and wonder, how do I protect a kingdom when I don't even know how to lead it? The watching nations waited, and Solomon felt their eyes. 1 Kings 4:21-25. The palace was massive, luxurious, filled with servants, guards, advisors, officials, but Solomon had never felt more alone. At night, after the meetings and decisions and responsibilities, he'd retreat to his private chambers, and the silence was deafening. He'd sit by the window, staring out at Jerusalem, the city David built, the capital of God's chosen people. God, what am I doing here? He'd whisper. I'm not qualified for this. I don't have my father's courage, his wisdom, his connection to you. He thought about David's mistakes too. the adultery, the murder, the family dysfunction. If even my father, a man after your heart, stumbled so badly, what chance do I have? The pressure was crushing. Every decision felt like a trap. Choose wrong, and people suffer. Choose right, if he even knew what right was, and maybe things would work. I need help, Solomon prayed. I can't do this alone. I don't know how to lead. I don't know how to judge fairly. I don't know how to protect this kingdom. It was honest, raw, desperate. Not the prayer of a confident king, the prayer of a terrified young man suddenly responsible for millions. He didn't know it yet, but that honesty, that humility was exactly what God was waiting for. Because God doesn't need confident leaders, he needs humble ones. Leaders who know they can't do it alone. Leaders willing to admit weakness. Leaders desperate enough to ask for help. And Solomon was about to get an opportunity to ask. 1 Kings 3 verse 7. Solomon traveled to Gibeon. It was the most important high place in Israel, a sacred site where people offered sacrifices and sought God. He brought 1,000 burnt offerings. Not a small gesture, not casual worship. This was desperation, extravagance, a public declaration, I need God. The priests helped prepare the sacrifices. Animal after animal, the altar blazed, smoke rose thick into the sky, the smell of burning flesh filled the air. Solomon stood watching, hands folded, heart heavy. He wasn't just offering sacrifices, he was offering himself, his fears, his inadequacy, his desperate need for divine help. God, I don't know what I'm doing, he prayed silently. But I know you do. I'm here, I'm listening, I'm willing. Please help me. The offerings continued for hours. By evening, exhaustion had set in. Solomon found a place to rest near the altar, lay down on the ground, the smell of sacrifice still lingering, the presence of God thick in the air. He closed his eyes, not expecting anything, just hoping that somewhere in the heavens God was listening, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he felt. Sleep came slowly, heavy, deep, and as Solomon drifted into unconsciousness, something began to happen. The atmosphere shifted. The spiritual realm pressed in, and in that liminal space between waking and sleeping, God moved. Not through priests, not through prophets, but directly, personally, about to offer something that would change not just Solomon's life, but human history. 1 Kings 3 verse 4-5. The dream wasn't like normal dreams. It was vivid, real, overwhelming. Solomon found himself standing in a space that felt both infinite and intimate. Light surrounded him, not harsh, but warm, penetrating, pure. And then, a presence, not just felt, encountered, God, not a voice from distant heavens, not a message through an intermediary, God himself, face to face, or as close as a mortal could experience without dying. Solomon fell to his knees instinctively. Terror and awe collided. This wasn't casual. This was holy ground, sacred moment, divine encounter. Then God spoke. The voice wasn't loud, didn't need to be. It filled everything, resonated in Solomon's chest, in his bones, in his soul. Ask for whatever you want me to give you. The words hung in the air, impossible, incomprehensible. The creator of the universe, offering a blank check. Whatever you want. Not limited, not conditional. Just ask. Solomon's mind raced. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Of 1,000 lifetimes. He could ask for anything. Long life, live for centuries. Victory over enemies, unstoppable military power. Wealth beyond measure, more than any king in history. Revenge on those who opposed him. Justice swift and brutal. Health, fame, pleasure, control, anything, everything. The pause stretched. God waited, patient, knowing, testing. Not testing Solomon's knowledge, testing his heart, because what you ask for in a moment like this reveals everything. Your priorities, your character, your soul. And Solomon, young and terrified and overwhelmed, had to choose. What did he want most? What did he need most? The answer would define everything that followed. 1 Kings 3:5. The silence felt eternal. Solomon knelt before God, the question echoing, ask for whatever you want me to give you. His mind flooded with possibilities. He thought about his enemies, the threats surrounding Israel, how easy it would be to ask, destroy everyone who opposes me. He thought about his father, how David had lived into his 70s but always wished for more time. Solomon could ask, let me live 200 years. He thought about wealth, the treasures of nations, gold, silver, luxury beyond imagination. Make me the richest man alive. He thought about pleasure, power, influence, legacy, any of it, within reach, just ask. But then another thought surfaced, quieter, deeper. I don't know how to lead these people. That was the truth beneath everything. Beneath the fear, the pressure, the weight. He didn't know how. Not really. He could fake it, rely on advisors, make educated guesses. But actually, lead well? Making wise decisions requires sound judgment. Actually, judge fairly? He didn't have it in him. And asking for anything else, riches, power, long life, wouldn't change that fundamental inadequacy. What good is wealth if you can't govern well? What good is long life if you lead poorly for decades? What good is victory over enemies if you lose the trust of your own people? Solomon realized the most valuable thing he could ask for wasn't for himself. It was for them. For the people depending on him. For the kingdom he was responsible for. And that realization changed everything, because it meant letting go of selfish ambition, letting go of personal gain, and asking for something far more profound. 1 Kings 3:9. Solomon lifted his head, looked into the presence of God, and spoke. Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. It was honest, vulnerable, humble. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. He wasn't exaggerating. Millions depended on him, and he felt the weight of every single one. Then came the ask, the request that would echo through history. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours? Silence. God didn't respond immediately. Just let the request settle, weigh itself, reveal its purity. Solomon hadn't asked for himself. He'd asked for the ability to serve others well. Hadn't asked for comfort.
O ancient powers, accept justice. Let the flames rise as a beacon of our might.
For wisdom to lead righteously. It was the prayer of a servant, not a tyrant. A shepherd, not a conqueror. A leader who understood that authority is responsibility, not privilege. And God, who sees hearts, who tests motives, who knows the difference between self-serving ambition and genuine humility, was deeply pleased. Because this wasn't the request of a man who wanted to be great. It was the request of a man who wanted to lead well. And that kind of heart, God honors, always. The response came, and it would change everything. Not just for Solomon, for the entire world. Kings 3:9. God's voice filled the space, warm, affirming, powerful. Since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. Solomon's heart surged. I will give you a wise and discerning heart so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Never. Past or future. The wisest human to ever live. Not through study, not through experience, through divine gift. But God wasn't done. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. Wait, what? Solomon had asked for wisdom, and God was giving him everything. Wisdom granted, wealth added, honor included. It was the principle Jesus would later teach. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Solomon sought to serve well, and God gave him everything needed to do that, and more. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Conditional. The long life wasn't guaranteed. It depended on continued faithfulness, but the wisdom, wealth, and honor? Those were gifts, immediate, unearned, given because Solomon's heart was right. The dream ended. Solomon woke with a start, gasping, heart pounding. It had been so real, so vivid. Was it just a dream, or had God actually? He looked around, the altar, the offerings, the morning sun rising, and deep in his spirit he knew. Something had changed. God had spoken, and the gift had been given. Now came the test. 1 Kings 3:10-15. Solomon returned to Jerusalem different. Not visibly, but internally. There was a clarity, a depth of understanding that hadn't been there before. He'd look at situations and see layers others missed. Hear conversations and discern hidden motives. Read people's faces and understand their hearts. It was subtle at first. In council meetings he'd speak and advisors would stop, stare. How did you see that? In trade negotiations, he'd propose solutions that benefited everyone. Why didn't we think of that? In disputes, he'd ask questions that cut straight to truth. That's exactly the right question. The wisdom was real, operating, active. But it hadn't been tested publicly yet, hadn't been proven to the nation, to the world. The wealth started manifesting too. Trade routes flourished, agreements with neighboring nations brought gold, silver, spices. The royal treasury, already substantial from David's bath, conquests began multiplying. Not through conquest, through commerce, through wise economic policy, through deals that made Israel the hub of international trade. And honor? Leaders who'd once viewed Solomon with skepticism now requested audiences, wanted to meet him, hear his thoughts, observe his leadership. There's something different about Israel's new king, they'd say. He's not like the others. But none of it had been tested in the crucible of public opinion. None of it had been proven undeniably, until one day, two women burst into the throne room, screaming, crying, fighting over a baby, and Solomon's wisdom was about to be revealed to the entire nation, in the most dramatic way possible. 1 Kings 3. The throne room was packed. Petitioners lined up with disputes to settle, land disagreements, contract violations, family feuds, normal administrative work. Then the doors burst open. Two women stumbled in, one clutching a baby, the other grabbing at her, both screaming. Guards moved to intervene, but Solomon raised his hand. Let them speak. The woman holding the baby spoke first, breathless, desperate. My lord, this woman and I live in the same house. I had a baby while she was there with me. 3 days later, she also had a baby. She paused, choking back tears. During the night, her baby died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son while I was asleep. She put her dead baby in my arms and took mine. The other woman exploded. No, the living one is mine. The dead one is yours. You're lying, the first woman shrieked. You killed your own baby, and now you want mine. The living baby is mine. Back and forth. Accusations flying, voices rising, chaos. The crowd watched, fascinated. This was better than entertainment. But also, how do you solve this? There were no witnesses, no evidence, just two mothers and one living child. Both women claimed him. Both insisted they were telling the truth. Solomon sat on his throne, silent, watching. His advisors leaned in, whispering suggestions. We could interview neighbors, maybe examine the bodies, question them separately. But Solomon said nothing, just observed, listened. Not to their words, to something deeper. The wisdom God had given him was already working, discerning, analyzing, preparing to reveal truth in a way no one expected. 1 Kings 3, verse 17-22. The courtroom devolved into shouting. She's lying. No, you're lying. That's my baby. He's mine. Guards tried to restore order, but the two women were beyond control. Grief, desperation, and rage had taken over. The crowd murmured. This was impossible to judge. Both women seemed convinced, both passionate, both claiming absolute truth. How could anyone know? Solomon's advisors looked helpless. One whispered, Your Majesty, perhaps we should postpone? Investigate further? But investigation would take days, weeks. And in the meantime, who keeps the child? The real mother would suffer. The liar would win. Unacceptable. Solomon studied the two women. One was frantic, pleading, tears streaming. The other was angry, defiant, demanding. Both emotions made sense for a grieving or wronged mother. He closed his eyes briefly. God, you promised wisdom. I need it now. Not audibly, just internally. A prayer shot toward heaven, and in that moment clarity came. Not a voice, just understanding. A strategy, risky, dramatic, but it would reveal truth. Solomon opened his eyes, looked directly at the guard nearest him and spoke 5 words that made the entire room go silent. Bring me a sword. Gasps, confusion, horror. A sword? Why? What was he planning? The guard hesitated, then obeyed, brought a gleaming blade, laid it at Solomon's feet. The king stood, picked up the sword, held it high, and the crowd held its breath. What was he about to do? 1 Kings 3, 23-25. Solomon held the sword. The blade caught the light, sharp, deadly, capable of ending life with one stroke. The crowd was frozen, terrified, confused. The two women stared. The baby, oblivious to the drama, cooed softly in one woman's arms. Solomon's voice cut through the silence, clear, commanding, shocking. Cut the living child in 2, and give half to one and half to the other. Complete. Utter. Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Did he just... The advisors looked horrified, the guards uncertain. The crowd couldn't believe what they'd heard. Cut the baby in half? That wasn't justice. That was madness, barbarity, evil. One of the women screamed, lunged forward. No, my lord, please, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. She can have him. Just don't kill him. She was sobbing, hysterical, willing to lose her child if it meant he'd live. The other woman's face was cold, calculated. Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. She'd rather see the baby dead than lose. The room gasped. The contrast was stark, undeniable. One woman willing to sacrifice everything for the child's life. The other willing to sacrifice the child to avoid losing. One motivated by love, the other by spite. Solomon slowly lowered the sword. Pointed at the first woman, the one who'd screamed, who'd begged, who'd been willing to give up her claim. Give the living baby to her. She is his mother. The courtroom erupted. Some in relief, others in awe, a few in tears, because they just witnessed something extraordinary. Not just a judgment, a revelation of character through crisis. 1 Kings 27. The crowd couldn't contain itself. He knew. Did you see that? The way he exposed her. That's brilliant. The first woman collapsed to her knees, clutching her baby, sobbing with relief and gratitude. The second woman's face went pale. She'd been exposed. Publicly. Undeniably. Guards escorted her out. She'd face consequences, not just for lying but for being willing to kill a child out of spite. Solomon sat back on his throne, calm, as if what had just happened was routine. But his advisors stared at him differently now, with awe, with respect, with a touch of fear. How did you know? One whispered. Solomon didn't answer immediately, just watched the real mother leave with her child. Whole, safe, loved. A real mother would rather lose her child than see him harmed, he finally said. Her love wouldn't allow her to choose death. But you gambled. I didn't gamble. I listened, watched, discerned. The truth was there. It just needed pressure to surface. The advisor shook his head. I would never have thought of that solution. Neither would I, Solomon admitted, a week ago. But now? Now he had wisdom beyond his years, beyond his experience, beyond human capability. This was the gift God had given, and it had just been proven. Publicly. Undeniably. The story would spread fast across Israel, beyond Israel. And Solomon's reputation, built on one decision, one moment of divine wisdom, was about to explode. Because people don't forget moments like this. They retell them, amplify them, turn them into legend. And Solomon? He'd just become
By this
legendary.
crown I claim this kingdom of
1 Kings
prosperity and power.
3:28.
Let the
Word
lion and
spread
the
through
treasures bear
Jerusalem like
witness.
wildfire. By evening, everyone knew. The king solved an impossible case. 2 mothers, 1 baby, no evidence. He ordered the child cut in half. That's barbaric. No, it was genius. It exposed the liar. People gathered in streets, marketplaces, homes, debating, discussing, marveling. How did he know? He saw what we couldn't see. That's not normal wisdom. That's something else. By the next morning, the story had reached surrounding villages. By the end of the week, the entire nation. Travelers carried it to distant towns. Merchants shared it at trade posts. Soldiers told it in garrisons. Have you heard about King Solomon? The baby cases? Unbelievable. Leaders who'd been skeptical of Solomon suddenly took notice. This isn't a weak king. This isn't David's inexperienced son anymore. This is someone we need to respect. Foreign ambassadors sent reports back to their kingdoms. Israel's new king demonstrates extraordinary wisdom. He's not just another monarch. We should establish better relations. And in the throne room, the line of petitioners grew longer. Everyone wanted Solomon to judge their case, settle their dispute, because if he could solve the unsolvable, maybe he could help them too. Solomon handled each case with the same discernment, asking questions that cut through lies, proposing solutions that satisfied justice and mercy, revealing truth in ways that left people speechless. The gift was real, active, undeniable, and with each decision, his reputation grew. Not just in Israel, across the known world. The name Solomon became synonymous with wisdom, and the journey from insecure young king to legendary leader, it had just begun. 1 Kings 4:29-34. Months passed. Solomon's wisdom became legendary. But it wasn't just about dramatic courtroom decisions. It showed up everywhere. In governance, he restructured Israel's administration, created 12 districts, each with a governor, streamlined tax collection, improved infrastructure. In diplomacy, he forged alliances through marriage, made peace treaties that protected Israel without warfare, established trade agreements that enriched the nation. In economics, he understood markets, predicted trends, invested in industries that would thrive. Israel's wealth multiplied exponentially. In culture, he encouraged arts, music, literature. Jerusalem became a center of learning, Scholars traveled from distant lands to study under Solomon's court. He wrote proverbs, 3,000 of them, sayings so profound they'd be studied for millennia. He wrote songs, over 1,000. Music that captured truth, beauty, emotion. He studied nature, could speak about plants from cedar to hyssop, could discuss animals, birds, reptiles, fish. His knowledge was encyclopedic, and people marveled. How does one man know so much? How does he see so clearly? What's his secret? Solomon knew. It wasn't him. It was the gift. The wisdom God had given. He didn't take credit, didn't boast, just stewarded what he'd been given. And as he did, the second part of God's promise manifested. Wealth. Not through conquest, through wisdom. Because wise leadership attracts resources. Wise policies create prosperity. Wise decisions multiply value. Gold flowed into Jerusalem. Silver, spices, rare materials. Israel became the wealthiest nation in the region. And Solomon, he became the richest man alive. Exactly as God promised. Not because he asked for it, because he asked for something better, and God gave him both. 1 Kings 4:29-34. The wealth was staggering. Solomon's annual income reached 666 talents of gold, about 25 tons. That doesn't include trade revenue, merchant imports, or gifts from foreign kings. His throne was overlaid with pure gold, 6 steps leading up to it, each flanked
He's
by
mine.
lions.
You have no
Nothing
right.
like it in
I
any
won't
other
let you
kingdom.
take him.
His
Give him
drinking
to me
cups,
now.
gold.
Never.
His palace utensils, gold. Silver was considered common, barely worth mentioning. He had 40,000 stalls for horses, 12,000 horsemen, a fleet of ships that brought back gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Every 3 years, his storehouses overflowed. His wealth became proverbial. As rich as Solomon became a saying. But the third promise, honor? That might have been the most significant. Because honor isn't just wealth, it's respect, recognition, reverence. Kings from across the world sought audiences with Solomon, not to conquer him, to learn from him. The Queen of Sheba heard about Solomon's wisdom and came to test him with hard questions. She arrived with a massive caravan, spices, gold, precious stones. Solomon answered every question, demonstrated wisdom so profound she was left breathless. "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true," she said. "But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard." She gave him gifts. He gave her gifts. She returned home amazed and told everyone. The stories multiplied. Solomon's name became legendary, not just in Israel, worldwide, all because of one prayer, one humble request, one moment of choosing wisdom over selfish gain, and God had honored it beyond imagination. 1 Kings 10:1-13. But with great blessing came great responsibility. Solomon never forgot the moment in Gibeon, the dream, the prayer, the gift. He'd asked for wisdom to lead God's people well, and that remained his focus. Even as wealth poured in, even as honor multiplied, even as his name became legendary, he built the temple, the house of God his father David had dreamed of but wasn't permitted to build. It took 7 years, the finest materials, the best craftsmen, gold overlay everywhere, intricate carvings, massive pillars, cherubim with wings spanning the Holy of Holies. When it was completed, Solomon dedicated it with a prayer so humble, so profound, it's recorded in Scripture. "But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heaven, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built?" Even with all his wisdom, wealth, and honor, he remained humble before God. Recognized that everything he had was a gift, that without God, he was nothing. The nation prospered under his leadership. Peace reigned, no wars, no major conflicts, just 40 years of stability, growth, and blessing. Israel's golden age, all because a young, terrified king had prayed one honest prayer, "I don't know how to lead. Please give me wisdom." And God had responded with generosity beyond comprehension. The lesson was clear, profound, eternal. When you seek God's priorities over your own, He gives you both. When you ask for the ability to serve well, He equips you beyond measure. When you humble yourself and admit need, He honors that humility with blessing. 1 Kings 8:27. The reputation of Solomon spread to the ends of the known world. Traders carried stories across seas. Ambassadors returned to their kingdoms with reports. Scholars traveled months just to sit in his court and learn. You have to hear him speak. The way he solves problems, it's not human. He sees things no one else sees. Kings sent delegations, Not for political alliances primarily, for wisdom. Ask Solomon, he'll know. And he did. Questions about justice, about economics, about relationships, about governance, about life. He answered them all, with clarity, with depth, with insight that left people speechless. His proverbs spread, memorized, repeated, applied. A gentle answer turns away wrath. Pride goes before destruction. Train up a child in the way he should go. Simple, profound, true. His influence wasn't just political or economic, it was cultural, moral, spiritual. He shaped how people thought, how they lived, how they understood wisdom, and all of it traced back to one decision. One prayer, one humble request. He didn't ask to be great, he asked to lead well. And greatness found him anyway. Because that's how God works. He doesn't reward pride, he rewards humility. Doesn't bless self-seeking, blesses service. Doesn't honor ambition, honors faithfulness. Solomon had been faithful with the opportunity God gave him. And God had been faithful to the promise he made. The young king who felt inadequate became the greatest king of his era. The man who asked for wisdom became the wisest man who ever lived. And it all started with a prayer. One honest, humble, desperate prayer. 1 Kings 10:23-24. Looking back, the pattern was clear. The day Solomon chose wisdom, everything else began chasing him. Not the other way around. He didn't chase wealth, it found him. Didn't chase honor, it was given. Didn't chase greatness, it emerged naturally.
The decree is final.
Living.
You will
That's
comply.
the principle.
But sire,
the
we
secret,
implore
the
you.
key.
My judgment
Seek
stands.
first what matters most. Ask for what enables you to serve others well. Prioritize character over comfort, wisdom over wealth, serving over status, and watch what God does. Solomon could have asked for anything. Power, pleasure, prestige, victory, longevity, luxury, any of it, his for the asking. But he chose wisdom, the ability to lead well, to judge fairly, to serve faithfully. And in choosing that, he received everything else. The story isn't just history, it's instruction. For anyone facing overwhelming responsibility, anyone feeling inadequate, anyone wondering how to lead when you don't feel qualified. Solomon's answer? Admit it. Ask for help. Seek wisdom, not from self-help books or leadership seminars primarily, from God, the source of all wisdom, the giver of every good gift. Because the same God who heard Solomon's prayer still hears ours, still honors humility, still gives wisdom to those who ask. The same God who transformed an insecure young king into the wisest man alive can transform anyone willing to pray that prayer. I don't know how to do this. Please give me wisdom. Ask, watch, believe. Because the day you choose wisdom, really choose it, above everything else, is the day everything else begins chasing you. Just like it chased Solomon. Just like it always does. When you get your priorities right, God handles the rest, every single time. James 1:5, Matthew 6:33.